Welcome back, Couch Company crew. We are the Couch Company podcast. And how many times am I going to say Couch Company in this episode?
That's 3
Over under
already.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
5.
The over under is 5.
I'm thinking 5. I don't explain over under to me.
All right, over under. Usually it's like total points in a game. So you have a hockey game. You watch hockey?
Yeah,
you know
I've seen the.
So the over under in a hockey game will be like 5.5. And now I'm either betting is it going to go over 5.5 goals or under 5.5 goals.
How do you do a half goal?
You don't.
Oh,
So the reason it's half points is because there's not going to be a tie. So if you do over under 6 and there's exactly 6 goals in the game, then you tie.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And then everyone gets their money back. Now sometimes they will do that, but sometimes it's half, like in the middle.
I got you.
And then you're either going to win or lose, right?
So if you just say couch or company, that counts as a half, though. So you could tie it on a couch company.
Yeah.
mention.
So in our sports book, it's going to be Couch Company. How many times does John say it? Over under is 5.75.
5.75. So what if you say co? Like if we're talking
think that
couch
counts.
co game?
Oh, I see. I don't think that counts.
Okay. Well, so the thing is now, as long as you don't say it again, I win.
Right.
Because you've already said it multiple times.
Well, I'm going to say it at the end, so it's
I know,
you're
that's what I
fucked.
mean. No, that's it. Because you only said it once.
Anyways,
And it's the 5th time. That was my brilliant
right.
plan that I've
lose?
No, to get it.
Oh, you said
5 times.
So I can't say it again, and then,
Yeah.
okay, and then you win. Okay, gotcha.
I mean, I laid my soul bare like a Bond villain right now. So clearly you'll get out of it. I'm just saying.
True. Did you ever see? Oh man. Oh God. Kingsman Secret Service. Something?
No, that's apparently decent.
Did you ever? Okay, you know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, is there a British version of it, or are they remaking it? Because I think I saw a trailer that like it looked new, but with none of the characters.
Interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
they did 2 of them, right?
Yeah, but with the dude from like Bridget Jones, right?
I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know, or it might be Princess Bride.
The first
Princess
one was way
Diaries?
better
I don't
than
know.
the second one.
The first one was.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I won't spoil it then, I guess.
I'll watch it eventually, probably.
Yeah.
Chelsea's probably seen it 12 times, so.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil it because it's kind of a big moment, but when
Yeah.
you said the whole Bond thing, I was like, it's a really good scene in that movie that does something like that. Anyways, enough of that. Anyone who has seen the movie knows what I'm talking about, maybe. It's the scene with Samuel L. Jackson and the other guy outside of the church.
John Travolta.
Nope.
Oh.
Great movie. Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Dude, anyways.
Some might say the best.
It's my favorite Tarantino movie, and you guys were all surprised when I said that because you're like, oh man, you're way too young for that.
I wasn't surprised. I heard you say
Mike
that
was
before.
saying
Yeah.
that like it was surprising for me.
Yeah.
But it's funny when he says stuff like that. He's like, oh man, you're way too young. It's like, dude, you're like 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
We were both born in the
a lot
90s.
can happen in 3 years. You
Sure.
You never know.
I mean, I think he did admit that it was, he was too young for it too. But anyways, enough of that. We have another list to get into here. Enough.
What the people
dilly-dallying.
come here for.
People
to get
do
mad
come here.
at.
They demand. And after last week, I had to stay inside for a while. Let me tell you.
It was there were news cameras and all kinds of stuff outside your door.
Yeah, I had to go on vacation,
Yeah.
and that's why.
Luckily for me, I have like that extra layer of protection because I'm in
You're
an
in the
apartment
second-
building.
yeah.
But man, you like they're ringing
over.
your doorbell.
Over.
It's rough.
Yeah. Anyways, this week, Tyler, why don't you tell the good people what we're going to be listening?
So this week we wanted to bring it a little. We haven't done any top 5 video game anything.
Halo weapons.
Well, yeah, okay. So we've only done one top 5 video game thing, but we wanted to kind of go to I guess like the bottom, like the foundation of video games.
Yeah,
is in
right.
Let's do the top 5 consoles.
and after you lay the foundation with the Halo weapons, now we can.
Now, will you prop them up like the Halo weapons gave? I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah,
I don't know.
like,
No, I think
we want to do the
totally
top 5
makes sense.
consoles. Yeah,
Top 5 video
Yeah.
game consoles.
It's the ninth generation. Did you know that was the ninth generation?
Ninth generation?
of consoles? Yeah.
like PS5 and
Yeah,
Series
that's where we're at
X?
right now. So technically, the 8th and 9th generation of consoles are ongoing
Wow.
right now. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
kinda
lot
nuts.
of generations. Yeah.
I think so. Because technically PS4 and everything is still going strong. Like God of War is going to be going out on PS4.
Yeah, we're in a very interesting time. I think COVID had a lot to do with that as well,
Yeah.
where the transition wasn't as smooth as it could have been. So it is. We live in weird times.
Do you want to put some rule, like as we always do, put some rules around these consoles?
Okay.
I had a couple suggestions.
Yeah,
or thoughts
you're kind of the rule guy.
I like rules.
I like breaking the rules.
I like to keep everything clearly with the Who's Line comment. So,
oh my god.
a couple things to keep in mind
Okay.
would be, how do we feel about those half-step consoles? So if you talk about like the PS4 versus the PS4 Pro, are we considering that one console?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with you. I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Another thing is obviously PCs are nixed. They're not consoles. So
know.
we're not calling them like Steam Machine is a console, anything like that.
Yeah,
big picture.
totally
Like,
agree. Orange
special
box.
nod, it could be great, whatever. The other thing would be like handheld. So like your Game Boys, DSs, Vitas, all that stuff. Like I think those need to be on the list.
Okay.
I think we need to talk through them.
Sure.
Because
I'm down.
I think it starts getting a little interesting with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then my last thing is, how do you feel about mobile games? I know you don't like mobile games. You're pretty elitist on that stuff.
I am, yeah, very much so. In fact, I don't have a single game on my phone.
That's interesting. Not even like a Balloons, like a Balloons TD.
Don't have
or
Balloons.
anything
Don't
like
have
that?
anything. I have DraftKings Sportsbook.
Okay,
That's where a lot of my money goes.
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I downloaded a poker game once, so I might be lying. I guess that counts.
So I would like to nix phones on the same
Yes, I
principle
agree.
as computers
Computers.
because it's a computer.
Absolutely.
It's not the primary.
It's not
use.
the primary function.
Yeah.
It's the primary function of mine, computer, not phone.
Right, but I mean, largely you can do other stuff on it and whatnot. So I would say
Yeah,
machines that are dedicated to gaming.
Like you launch it up
only.
and it's
Yeah.
it's a game.
Yeah.
Console. Yeah.
That being said, there's a Steam Deck one, but it's not technically out yet, so we're not going to go there.
Well, you said those kind of things don't count. Well, yeah, that
Yeah,
would
but
be
it's
different.
like
Yeah, that'd be
the Steam
kind of
Deck
because it goes
is
straight
like-
into Steam when you
yeah.
launch it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's not like a Windows platform.
Technically, so does Steam machines.
Well, I mean, technically, it is. Is it on Win or what is it? Linux?
It's running on Linux.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So
It's
none
not
of
going to
that
go on the
stuff.
list, but nod to them.
What about arcade?
That's a great question.
Kinda
I'm
deals.
saying no because it's also not a home console.
It's not a home console. Fair.
Yeah.
But you count like the Duck Hunt thing?
Well, Duck Hunt is based off of
What was that on
Nintendo.
NES?
Yeah, it's on NES.
Tyler, I don't know anything about that.
I know.
age.
It's gonna be very interesting.
This is going to be a history lesson for me.
I'm going to have to do some finagling, I think.
I thought Duck Hunt was just its own thing, man. I don't
No,
know.
yeah.
Came with the shotgun. Did you have that?
I did not have
gun?
I only had the.
My band
the
teacher
pistol.
had the shotgun.
I didn't even know
He
there was
like-
a shotgun. I don't think.
Maybe it was a pistol. I don't know. He was just telling me this story
It was a
about
large
like
pistol.
what?
It was a large pistol. It was,
Yeah,
it was pretty,
maybe I don't
pretty
know.
big.
Maybe he just doesn't know his weapons. Anyways, he was telling me like he used to play as a kid, and like when you get to the like really high levels, it gets crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd be like his face would be on the screen, like with the gun.
Oh
like,
yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, I told you about that. How my
nuts.
grandpa was a crack shot.
Yeah.
Like he was
Yeah.
insane. So like on those hard levels where like if you misfire once, you lose.
Yeah,
Like you're done.
Right, you have to hit everything.
And he was just like me. I would like it would be on the CRT monitor, just trying to like shoot the light
just
at it and
your
stuff. It's nuts.
pupils just
Yep.
on the screen. Yeah,
Which I don't even know how that worked because it like with the light bouncing back on it and stuff. Like I feel like you had to give it some room, otherwise it would misfire. I don't know. Anyway,
anyways,
what do you want to start out with? It's a broad thing.
Do you want to do chronological or do you want me? There's one of two ways. We can go chronologically,
we can do chronologically,
or I can go through what I have played on like every console I've owned because that's gonna be a much shorter list than yours, and then you could go through what you had.
because I have that decade on you of other stuff to talk about.
While you were watching Jeopardy, I was pooping my pants.
So
in my diaper.
The only thing, so like I said, we're in the 9th generation.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, Nintendo Entertainment System, that's considered the 3rd gen of
what?
consoles and video games. It's the 3rd generation of video games.
Nintendo
is the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES.
Oh yeah.
As you
Oh
would know.
jeez, Tyler, this is gonna be a disaster.
Oh no.
The what?
just as and I like just to call that out. So I would say Atari 2600 is kind of like what people consider like their first system.
Space Invaders?
Usually, I would assume.
Is that something?
That's second. Well, that's second gen. That is something. Yeah.
What game was the ET game on?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to say...
You know what I'm talking about? Like the notorious worst game ever?
That's actually a good question. I want to say Super Nintendo, but I could be completely wrong.
All right. Anyways,
I can fact check that.
Sorry about that.
The only... I did play Pong, which I talked to you about, how you like put those in with the two knobs and stuff. That was considered the first generation of...
What console was that?
It was Pong, brother.
Pong.
It was literally like you plug it in and that's it.
God.
Which is kind of interesting because they have, quote unquote, by that logic, you have consoles that are like, hey, here's Pac-Man, plug this in.
That's what I was kind of alluding to.
I would say we nixed
with the Duck Hunt
those.
thing, but I guess the Duck Hunt was actually on a console. Yeah,
it
nixed those. Yeah, I would say like the third generation seems like when it starts, you're getting like these.
Right.
What we know today as a console. But it's important to give a nod to that, I guess.
Yeah, I am sorry. You were right. It was an Atari 2600 for the ET game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so because we're probably going to skip most of the beginning stuff, I do want to give a shout out to the Nintendo Entertainment System. That was my first
the NES
console, the NES for you youngins out there.
Would you consider it being in the top 5?
I would not consider it being in the top 5, namely because the Super Nintendo is just
way better.
That much better.
Okay.
Now, when you think about it, because unless you threw a curveball and you really want to get like a Sega on there or something, which we could.
Yeah.
Once we talked about the Dreamcast and everything, we can get on there. But when you look at the players in the kind of the arena, you have Nintendo, you have Microsoft, you have Sony, and Sega. So you have those 4.
Right.
Let's say we give one of the spots to each of those. I'm not saying we will, but we might.
Okay.
The interesting thing is like who's going to get that second spot.
Yeah.
Which I find very interesting. But let's go chronologically. We can start listing some of this stuff off because so in the 4th gen you have Super Nintendo. That's the one I played. Obviously, there's Sega Genesis was around there, Neo Geo, that sort of thing, which. I never played them. I played Super Nintendo. Love Super Nintendo. I think we need to talk about Super Nintendo actually making it on this list.
So Super Nintendo, where's the Nintendo 64?
So Nintendo 64 is after that. That's the one that came right after Super Nintendo. That's going to be
you think the Super Nintendo is better than the Nintendo 64?
I think the Super Nintendo is better than Nintendo 64.
Can I see a picture of this?
What picture do you want? Of
the
what
Super
they look
Nintendo.
Like? Yeah, what a Super Nintendo looks like?
Yeah.
A little mini one. I could have brought that up. But
yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to get because I think I've played a Nintendo 64 at the Eagle's Nest at Giant Eagle.
Yeah, so it's interesting because what you would have played would have been a purple and gray system. Now there's the Super Famicom, which is in
I do know that.
Japan.
Yeah.
A little bit more colorful, a little bit rounder.
So what would you play on this? Like Mario?
So this is where your Super Mario World comes in. Super Mario All-Star. So when they kind of the first time they redid like Mario 1, Lost Levels, 2, 3, that sort of thing. Yoshi's Island is where you had that stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's your Donkey Kongs.
So that's a huge factor in my opinion. Like the exclusives that you're going to have on the system, right? Like I think that definitely gives a lot of weight to the argument.
Absolutely.
So yeah, these Nintendo systems do really well with that. So that's a lot of those kind of things. Super Mario World 3, best game of all time according to Tyler, right?
Super Super World. So
Super
Mario Brothers 3 was very
Super Mario
good.
Brothers 3, sorry.
I would say most people would put that, like you, depending on who you talk to, it would be between Super Mario World and Super Mario Brothers 3. I'm in the World camp. I think World does everything better than 3.
Interesting.
I know a lot of people like 3. Your cousin included.
I have not played. Yeah, I was going to say Nate was a huge Super Mario.
3 is great. 3 is very good.
Yeah.
But World had Yoshi.
Yeah,
and did
You're
a lot of cool
huge
stuff.
Yoshi guy, man.
I'm not.
Yoshi.
That's the thing is I don't actually care about Yoshi at all.
Who's your favorite character from Mario?
From Mario?
Yeah.
That's actually a great question. Like
that could be a top 5.
Protagonist, you mean? Or just all characters just across the board?
Could be Bowser or the ghost guy.
I would have to think on that a little bit. I think
mine would be Toad.
Toad's up there. Toad actually plays a pretty important role in 3, where he's maybe less so in World, if at all. Actually, come to think of it, Toad might not even be in it.
He is next to a lot of different.
Now I kind
titles.
of feel bad for poor Toad. But see, I actually kind of identify a lot with the Boos. Just because they are like the most introverted character in the entire entire game.
It's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, like
that could be a top 5.
Dude, World, it really could. Like top 5 Mario characters or Mario villains, maybe, because we haven't done a villain thing yet. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Either or.
Yeah. Man, what a great game.
Anyways, yeah.
Anyway, you had, but like when you look at how far the systems came from, just this very good but rudimentary like NES system with like this original Super Mario Brothers and like a couple colors and things like that. And you go to Super Nintendo where it's just like, holy crap, what a huge upgrade.
So it's just like the gap that it had, like the jump that it made.
Yeah, I mean, it's just visually, gameplay wise, like they
because you had both. Is that right?
Stuff.
Or no?
I did have both. So
okay.
the NES was a hand me down. And granted, a lot of this stuff is nostalgia, but when you really look at it, because I think Super Nintendo had like something like 1,600 games or something like that.
Right.
Again, not all of them good, but Nintendo's Nintendo. Whatever they put out is typically great.
Yeah.
But the NES was a hand-me-down, and then one Christmas my parents did get me the Super Nintendo, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
It was such a night and day difference. And you got to think up to this point too. I had never seen it. So like this is when, and not to jump too far ahead, but like whenever you're talking about your N64, your PlayStation, like going from like Super Nintendo to PlayStation, that blew my mind completely again because it's like, oh, now this is 3-dimensional, and like that's when you see your Tekkens and stuff. Looking at Tekken now, it looks terrible.
Well, back in the day, dude, that's a thing that blows my mind, dude. I think about all the time, like just relativity, and like remember when our minds were blown seeing pixeled Lara Croft,
right?
And now you see her today, it's like holy, like you couldn't even imagine that. But it's like crazy, you know what I mean? Like it's like we thought it looked fantastic back then.
Absolutely, but I think that's something to keep in mind, though. Yeah, and this is where
it has to be in the time period kind of deal, right?
I don't think it does, and this is where we might differ a little bit.
How it holds up.
Yeah. I think that needs to talk about it, because if you look at the Super Nintendo stuff, and this is why I think Super Nintendo absolutely needs to be on this list, is because not only are games still emulating that and trying to strive for that.
It might be the most popular emulator, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I could plug in my mini Super Nintendo right now. You could play Super Mario World, and you would have just as much fun as I did back then, because it holds the hell up like perfectly.
I mean, we will test that theory.
We will, yeah. I mean, and if you don't like platformers, it's a moot point. But what I'm saying is, if you take Super Mario World and you start playing that is just as good now as it was back then. However, if you take Tomb Raider and try to play that on PlayStation, or even if you want to try talking about like the Metal Gear games and stuff, amazing in their time. Even Tekken 1 was amazing in its time.
Yeah,
but like 3 blew it out of the water. Granted, still on the PlayStation 1, which is you can see how well the software came.
Yeah.
But it's the PlayStation 2 conversation, the Xbox conversation, like that next generational leap. That's kind of where it really took off. Where I would consider N64, PlayStation, that's kind of their experimental kind of realm.
Right.
And it's just 2 juggernauts. But once you start introducing Xbox and to a lesser extent Sega at that point, now you're starting to see some real competition. You're starting to see like this increase in power, and then you see this gap happen of like, are exclusives better? Can you make a good game? Do you need that power? Is power the thing that makes people like the system?
Right.
I just think it's a really interesting conversation.
So the Super Nintendo.
So all that being said, I think Super Nintendo should be on the list. Now,
it's hard for me to fight against that. I mean, I think you make compelling arguments there, so I would give that to you there.
And obviously, we have to talk about everything else, and we can go through it. But let me put it this way: if I was going to put one system on the list from Nintendo, I think it would be the Super Nintendo.
I think that's fair.
The argument you can make for it, not to jump ahead, but if you want to start getting into the Switch which technically has
Switch is
Super
pretty
Nintendo
good.
stuff.
Yeah,
But again, they're emulators.
it's emulators.
Not the worst thing in the world. It's still fine, but I could let me put it this way: the only way I see Super Nintendo not being on this list would be if we put a Switch on, and I don't think the Switch deserves it as much as.
Yeah,
but
sure.
we'll get there. So. Okay, so Super Nintendo, that would be one. And now we're getting into the Sega Saturn, Sony PlayStation, Nintendo 64, those three. I never played Saturn, short of the couple times that I went in.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Is that notoriously like the loser of that generation? Or
I mean, it is in my mind because...
Well, yeah, but I don't know what the consensus is among the folk.
Well, let me put it this way. It was never a conversation of, do I get one of those three? It's always, do I get a PlayStation? Do I get the N64? Right. For my money, I consider these consoles experimental, where they are kind of, oh, hey, let's see what 3D models go into.
Yeah,
what does this look like?
I think I'm there with you. I don't... Like, I loved my PS1, but...
Yeah.
Is it top 5 consoles of all time? I don't know if it quite hits that mark. I know the N64 was very popular.
I mean, PlayStation 1 was
like Super Mario 64 and stuff like that.
Some of the things you got to keep in mind too is the list that I'm going off of right here, just for like a timeline purpose. Like they don't have like the handhelds on there.
Oh yeah,
so
that's a good point.
You got to keep the handhelds on there. And I think my first console, like we talked about, was the Game Boy Color. At the time.
Yeah.
PlayStation was the first console that I did buy with my own money. So there is some nostalgia there.
Right.
But when I'm thinking about all the different games, like you have your Spyro and I didn't like Crash, but I mean a lot of people like Crash and stuff.
And Tomb Raider.
Tekken, Tomb Raider, like Gex. Like you
Metal
have
Gear.
some stuff there. Yeah. It was fine.
Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah, but like those are the games I never played. Like Symphony of the
Saying.
Night. Like there's a lot there.
For the time, dude, PS1 was
great.
Cranking.
Absolutely. But does it stand up to where we've come from? Is PlayStation 1 better than PlayStation 2?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think so.
Just
You know, like, right.
I
So,
don't think so.
that's where I'm like, honorable mention. I know some
If
people
I were to put a PlayStation console on the list, it would be PlayStation 2.
and we
Maybe
will get
that's
there,
literally
yeah.
just because that's like the prime of my gaming. But when I think back to PlayStation 2, there were so many games on.
Yeah. I mean,
that
it's hard
system.
to,
Like,
go against that. Absolutely.
And yeah, anyways, we'll get to it.
Yeah. So anyway, I know there's a lot of people that love their N64. I never had an N64. I played a lot
that's
of
the
it.
thing where
Played
it's
a lot
like
of, like Bond and
that was
stuff.
Super Mario 64, Mario Karts,
Yeah,
64, right? Or whatever.
Yep, Donkey Kong.
It's like those are some heavy hitters.
Absolutely, and you have GoldenEye. Like
GoldenEye, yeah.
I'm not saying those were bad by any stretch.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go out and say that Mario Kart, it was fine. Was it a leap up from the Super Nintendo Mario Kart, like the first Mario Kart? Sure.
Yeah.
The first Mario Kart was still pretty good and ahead of its time. When you look at the technology that they did to make that thing work,
Yeah.
holy cow, that was pretty good.
But the 64 Mario Kart was way better,
It was,
in my opinion. I just remember.
sure.
I remember going to the Eagle's Nest, and I would play the N64. It was a lot of fun.
It was. Now, do you think the N64 should be on a top 5 list?
I don't know. Depending on who you ask, it's tough because I never had one. But I feel like the people who had an N64 are very passionate about that.
Absolutely. And I will remind everyone that this is our experience, and this is a couch company.
Oh yeah.
But
no. So I mean, I try to factor that in a little bit. How
Sure.
other people feel.
I mean, we could let's keep it on the list and see where it falls.
I'm just not. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. Let's keep it
I
around.
don't want to be disrespectful.
Let's keep it around. I think PS1's probably not on there. It's safe to say that, and Saturn's probably number 1. But
yeah, Saturn.
anyways, all right. What do we got next?
So then we're going into. So that was the 5th generation.
So what are we doing for handhelds?
So handhelds on a different list.
Sweep back to that.
I think that's one of those things to talk through. Like, okay, if we're talking about handhelds, is there anything that you want to put on the list? I would like to do a quick mention on the only one would be the.
I think whatever we think the best handheld is should be on the list because there's like something to be said. Every kid had a handheld.
Yeah.
And how many times did that save you whether you're going on a long trip or like
Right.
you're in church or something
Sure.
crazy. Just playing Pokemon or whatever, man. Like that's, I think every kid had that experience.
I think if I was going to pick a handheld, all things considered, I think a DS Lite is the
I never had a DS. I had a Game Boy Advanced.
Game Boy Advance is great. The SP was
Yeah,
fantastic.
man. I thought that thing was awesome.
Originally, I wanted to say, hey, let's put the Game Boy Color on, right? But the more you
I've
found about,
seen the Game Boy Color. Like I've held one in my hands.
yeah,
Once.
I'm
At a
sure I have one
museum.
around here somewhere.
No, I'm just kidding.
With the batteries probably still working. Like the thing with the Game Boy Color is when I have some nostalgia love for it because that was technically the first
Right,
air quotes console I did buy with Pokemon Blue.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, you forget that it's not backlit. It's not like it's all these things where like you either had to put this like monstrosity of a thing on to make the screen bigger and light it and all that other stuff. That's why when the Game Boy SP came out,
Yes.
it was amazing.
You could play under your covers.
You have your advanced
man.
games, you have your Game Boy Color games, all that stuff.
I really, actually, the more we talk about it, I think a handheld should make the list, man. Like, what a crucial console for kids to
I
have.
think it should too. I just think that if you're going that route, do you go all the way and say it's like a 3DS with those newer games and different things like that?
I mean, you could make that
Lite?
argument. I guess my thought is like, and this is just my experience, but like, you know, you have the people who stuck with the handheld stuff, but I was not one of those people. Like when I got older and was able to like have my own console and stuff and didn't need that kind of stuff anymore, I got away from that. So I think there was like a larger group of people that were with the SP and stuff.
I agree. Well, the reason why I was saying originally a DS Lite over like something like the SP is because the DS Lite, you could still play those games on the DS Lite.
Sure,
so it was kind of the best of all the worlds. And I remember a lot
popularity-wise, do you think the SP like outsold the DS stuff?
No.
The
Not
DS
at all. The DS,
DS
Lite
is
not even
like number one.
Yeah, and I could look it up and give you the numbers, but that's
Sure.
that's laughable. Like to even think that.
Well, then it
DS
should be DS, I think. At that
I
point,
think it should.
If it's
Like-
doing it better and it's more popular. See, I was under the impression that maybe some of the early ones were more popular.
I mean, we can get you the
I believe you,
numbers
man.
here,
I
yeah.
believe you. You're very confident.
I mean,
about
hey,
that.
maybe I'm wrong. It's just like the DS, specifically the Lite. So
I just don't remember everyone having a DS, and maybe I'm wrong.
well, the DS,
maybe
the original DS
misremembering.
was also a monstrosity. It looked like a prototype. Like it was like this big, gray, bulky thing.
Right.
And then this, to me, is like more impactful than any slim.
Yeah, now
the
that I'm
PS2
thinking
Slim
about
is
it,
pretty
now
good,
that I'm
but-
thinking about it, I think everyone did have a DS. Because
Well,
I remember
that's
we
the
would
two
go on.
screens.
Yeah. I remember us going on like band trips and shit, and everyone would be playing Mario Kart with each other.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I didn't have a DS, so I was fucked.
The DS Lite is. I'm trying to see if there's like a. I should have done my homework and got you some sales here.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious about that. I mean, I'm probably way wrong, but I don't know why I was.
I'm not saying that the SP didn't sell. The SP was great, but the DS
The
Lite
SP
was
for me,
just,
for some reason, I thought everyone had an SP, and I think I might be like switching them.
the SP still had the hinge, and it was almost like a
it was like a square though. It wasn't like
It
a
was, yeah.
rectangle. Yeah, and
with only one screen and yeah.
No, I know which one's which. I like mistaking them as in like the DS was the one that was super popular and everyone had.
DS
and
Lite was the thing,
The SP wasn't actually.
And I'm sure the 3DS outsold the DS Lite.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from my money, it's like the DS Lite's kind of like that. Oh, I want best of both worlds. Like I
Yeah.
still want to play my old Game Boy games.
Hey, I'm with you on that. I think that's a solid argument.
yeah.
But
Anyway, that's.
I think
really,
we should strongly consider if that's our representative for handhelds. I think we should strongly consider putting that in the top 5.
I would put it on the list. I'll be interested to see how it hangs when you're starting to talk about things like a Switch and where that falls. And
Yeah,
how
but
that
even
works.
with a Switch, man, it's like a Switch is pretty big.
it is
Like you can't put a Switch in your pocket and like that was the thing. Like you'd have your DS and you're on a trip, you're on a whatever.
I
You could
absolutely
just take it out of
agree,
your
but-
pocket and play with your friends. Like I just remember that was a big thing.
But kids aren't going to have that anymore. That's the
Exactly.
crazy thing.
They
is,
aren't
like,
gonna have
you're
that
not going to
anymore.
do that. That's like antiquated. That's like something that now you either have an iPad or you have a Switch, and it's
Or you're playing on your phone.
Yeah,
you
like the
know?
size factor
Yeah.
doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
man.
it's an interesting kind of perspective,
Shift.
like seeing my nephew, my niece, and everyone like play.
But I think that having that period in history is important to take it. nod to
absolutely. I mean, that's something to talk through. I mean,
Yeah.
by that logic, though, like Pong is worth mentioning.
I think
and
Pong's
stuff.
worth a mention.
Yeah, which we did. I mean,
We did.
It's
You screwed it in, you played it, and now we're at Generation 5.
Well, we finished Generation 5.
Okay.
Now it's Generation
Now
6.
Yeah.
That is when there was kind of the first stopgap between. So you had PlayStation, you have N64. I'll do a quick nod to the Sega Saturn, whatever. That's all in the same thing.
Sure.
But then Sega Dreamcast comes out.
You're a Dreamcast boy.
I'm a Dreamcast boy in that thing was awesome when it came out and was so far ahead of PlayStation and N64, and it was just like, holy cow, look at this.
So what
look how
generation is
amazing it
this? Dreamcast,
So this is the
PS2.
Yeah, that's
and,
the problem.
What's
and
the other
Xbox.
one? Xbox One. I think the
Yeah.
PS2 and the Dreamcast were better than the Xbox, personally.
GameCube's on there, but I agree with you. I think PS2 on that generation. I think PS2 just runs away with it. It's not even close.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone had a PS2, right? Like,
yeah, unless you had. Well, you did have the group of GameCube people. You had the
weirdos,
group
yeah.
of Xboxes. And then you had like
elitists.
kind of the smaller Dreamcast. The thing with Dreamcast is it wasn't like Dreamcast just hung with these guys. It was they went under. Like at one point we were going into like Babbage's or Funkoland or wherever before GameStop bought everyone.
Right.
And I was getting controllers for like $5.
Wow.
Like I was getting stuff where it's just like, hey, I just want to buy every Dreamcast thing you have. I've never seen my dad just laugh and drop money faster because I got this thing. It was $260.
Yeah.
I bought it at Best Buy. I got it. And then like a month later, it's just like, hey, Dreamcast is dead. Like it's just dead. Like it is.
insane, yeah.
So that was fine. But then my dad went in and it was like, well, it's dead. So like you got to get it now or you're just never getting. So we went through and I remember clearly because I got like the 4 controllers. I got the all the memory cards for them. I got like all the games they had. I got like everything, like the keyboard, like that you can plug in.
Yeah.
And the Dreamcast was cool because I mean, porn aside, you could hook that thing up to the internet. It was nuts because it literally like you plug it into your phone line.
Yeah.
And then you just had the internet and you
That's
could play
crazy.
online. You could chat with whoever you want. You could go on any website you want. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
And up to that point, you never saw that. So to think that you could play something like Fantasy of Star Online and just run around with other people over a freaking landline connection is bizarre and awesome.
That is a different time, man.
Do I think it deserves to be on the list? No.
That's a very important part of your history.
It was an important part of my history, and like when you look at all the cool, weird shit that it did with like, hey, the memory cards are their own little mini consoles. You can like play games on that, then you slot it in, and now you can actually play the like level up your Chows or Cheos or whatever from like Sonic and
So
stuff like
interesting,
that.
yeah.
Or
very weird.
I mean, think about a PlayStation 2 memory card or Xbox for that matter, where it's like you have to go into the console settings and look at all this.
Yeah.
With Dreamcast, you can not only see everything on there, but you can actually like format the card or delete something you don't need or make room for it and then slot it into a thing. You could take that card into, and it never happened because I was the only one with a Dreamcast, but theoretically, you could go over to your friend's house and slide your card in, and like if you're playing like a fighter or something or like a UFC match, all your custom fighters now are on the card. Like it was
awesome.
So far ahead of what PlayStation and N64 were and stuff. It was just...
Wonder why it never just caught on.
Well, I mean, when you look at the layout of the Dreamcast controller and then you kind of read between the lines and you look at what Xbox did with their controllers and stuff, which is very, very similar with the size and everything. Like it's just... What happened was it was the bridge, and then you had PS2 and Xbox come in and just stomp it. And GameCube. I always forget about GameCube and GameCube, technically.
Is GameCube considered a good console?
It depends on who you talk to.
I had one. Yeah. It was fine, but it's like didn't
it's
light a
Nintendo,
candle.
right? Like
it's Nintendo.
I
People
think
are very passionate about their Nintendo.
They are,
products.
and if you ask anyone, like in our friend group, that has the Double Dash for Mario Kart. So like that's like
I know
their favorite Mario Kart and stuff like that.
They think it's the best game ever made.
You have Luigi's Mansion, you have Resident Evil, you have all these things. Not that Resident Evil was exclusive, but like
I will say, I think my favorite Pokemon game ever was on a GameCube.
Which one was that?
It was like Veil of Darkness or something.
Oh, okay.
You ever hear that?
Nope.
It was unbelievable. It was kind of like Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
so it was like 3D and everything. And
Coliseum was like 64, right? Like that's what, like you had Coliseum, Snap, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So technically, I never played Coliseum, so I guess Coliseum should be my favorite game because like this is probably a worse version of that. But I just remember I was like, dude, this is like awesome.
I mean,
it was like, it looked pretty much like, I don't know, like Let's Go Eevee or whatever that one came out. You know, very 3D and that sort of thing.
Like there's nothing against GameCube. It's just like
it's just fine. It's
you
just
have
like, dude,
Strikers,
you're just going
you
up
have
against,
Mario Party, you have all these great games, like these great evolutions of where the
There's
64 went.
Nightfire, James Bond. That was a good game.
Yeah,
it wasn't GoldenEye, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I mean, everyone that's saying how amazing GoldenEye was, sure, does it hold up? No, I don't think so. But like, you know,
dude, you can't even fucking aim,
right?
Like,
but. I don't know, like GameCube, like you can't tell me that's a good controller. Now, granted, like I understand that's where like the Smash scene came.
Yeah, some people like swear
by
by it, but it's like, dude, come on, it's like the clunkiest layout I've ever seen in my life.
That's my
like, you won't get better than the PlayStation controller.
See, I disagree, and I am on firmly in the camp of the Xbox controller feels better than the PlayStation controller. That's me.
I think I'm probably was with you back when I had a 360. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm like on PC exclusively, I have like a more PS2 styled controller now. So I think it's just what I'm used to.
Yeah, and like obviously that has some.
I remember like when I was on 360 and I'm playing with that every day, and then you go to a PlayStation controller, it feels so small. It's like awful. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, there are some things to be said for all those things that the different consoles brought, like obviously with GameCube, and then even with Xbox. When you look at Halo, and like that's the start of it, you look at Morrowind, you look at Splinter Cell, you look at all these incredible franchises that got their start on there. Yeah, like that's awesome. And Splinter Cell might not be exclusive, but it looked really freaking good. Like everyone was like, "Look at this water, it's amazing." Like it's really neat.
Now we have Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But do I think that they deserve to be on the list? PlayStation 2, absolutely. But as far as I could argue Dreamcast. I wouldn't mind putting on this list. I think that might be the first thing we cut. I would like to keep Dreamcast on there too.
Keep it alive right now.
But Dreamcast and PS2 from that generation, personally.
I agree. I think the Xbox.
I think you can mix the Xbox and.
I think the Xbox really took its stride next generation.
I think GameCube. So here's the thing, and this is something that I'll be interested in. Like now we're getting into the next gen.
Yeah.
So now we're going into the seventh generation.
Yeah.
So this is like a 2005 to 2017, which is nuts to think about. That it was.
Wait,
that long.
What?
Yeah.
This has got to be the longest gen.
It's a long. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely long, but that's when you bring in the Xbox 360.
Yep.
You bring in PlayStation 3.
Yep.
And then you bring in Nintendo Wii.
Oh yeah, man!
Which
Holy
just sets
shit!
The world on fire.
That's a really interesting point. That's so different, dude. I still play Wii Golf to this day. When we go over to my friends,
and it's
awesome.
If you were to ask me,
okay,
I would not put Wii on the top 5 consoles.
That's
personal.
Yeah,
that is beyond personal. I could never snag a Wii. I stood in line for like 3 hours in front of a Target, and then somebody came out, this smug asshole, and was like, "Oh no, they're out of the consoles," carrying his like one Wii console, and then they sent everyone home.
Man, you are salty.
I'm a little salty.
To this day.
To be fair, everyone else had a Wii, so it wasn't like I never got to play a Wii.
Yeah.
But I never felt like it was like this incredible.
I never had a Wii either, so I do not know the joys of being able to turn on my Wii and play. Like, I wonder what it felt like back in the day. I remember it was like a huge thing, right? Like it was like everyone thought it was the awesomest,
absolutely
most awesome thing.
I mean, it blew all kinds of records out. Like it was insane. Yeah. But you know that goes back to our list. Do we put it on there because
the only good game on that system is Wii Sports?
Well, I mean, you had your you had your Mario Strikers on there. You had a new everything. You had your Mario, like your new Mario Kart, your new Mario Party.
But were they good?
Like, all that stuff, like Donkey Kong, like they were good. Yeah,
were they? Okay.
Absolutely. They're better than Double Dash. I don't care. Like, it is. It's just better. Like
best Mario Kart.
Best Mario Kart is Mario Kart 8. 100%.
Yes.
It's not even a question.
It's not close.
People that fight that,
Mario Kart 8 does everything.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack is unbelievable.
Yep.
Like, wow.
Nope, it's not even.
I am totally with you, man.
Yeah.
Although I did like Mario Kart 64.
Sure.
It's good.
It was good in its time, just
Mario
like
Kart
Double Dash was
Mario
good
Kart
in its
64
time.
is better than Double Dash.
I don't know if I can.
Yeah,
I can
it is.
support that.
Anyone can fight me on that. Anyone. I
I'm
will
just
take
saying,
all
Mario
challengers.
Kart 8 is.
Oh yeah, I know. I
definitively
agree. I'm
the-
totally.
They could have
with you.
called
I'm
it
not a
Mario,
huge
Mario Kart Ultimate. and
yeah,
you're done.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm not a huge Mario Kart guy, but I'm totally with you on that.
yeah. But so for me, I wouldn't put
I'm more
Wii
of
on the
a
list.
crash racing kind of guy.
Yeah, you would Diddy Kong Racing. You would be. But so for me, out of the 7th generation with Microsoft 360 or Microsoft Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Nintendo Wii, I think the 360 needs to be on that list.
360 was just way better. Is this just confirmation bias for myself because I had a 360? But dude, it just kicked the shit out of.
Well,
I remember. So PS3, the thing it had going for it was the free online, but Xbox Online was just leaps and bounds better. It was so yeah, right. So like, 360 was so good.
360 was the realization of Microsoft of saying like, hey, look, because Microsoft the first Xbox wasn't out that long. I forget exactly how many years it was, but it was a fairly short life cycle before they just murdered it, and then we're like, all right, here's the next one, and the jump from where Xbox One was to where the 360 was just insane. Just from a graphic standpoint, and like when you look at Gears of War, that was going to be your first like, oh hey, here's your high definition, like here's your HD stuff. Like
Which jump are you talking about?
From Xbox One, so like PlayStation 2 and Xbox One to PS3.
You can't call it an Xbox One.
You're right. I'm sorry. The
original Xbox.
the OG Xbox.
Yeah.
You're right.
I was like, you're going backwards.
No, I don't even want to talk about Xbox One. But so like the 360 was just like that's where you get your Call of Duty, which changed everything. Your Halos, your.
But I mean, it's on PlayStation as well. Call of Duty.
It is, but not to the extent of like if.
So let me ask you this: so you were in a high school. Mm-hmm. Was 360?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, yes.
Starting college, maybe.
Yeah, it would have been.
Because I was starting to get into high school. Maybe when it came out, it was
high
end
school
of
and
middle
college,
school for me. Anyways, so did you? Was it a 50-50 PlayStation to Xbox? Did you feel like in your school and stuff? I personally felt like everyone had an Xbox. Like there was a small group of people who had PlayStation, but they were like kind of the weirdos.
Yeah,
I felt like because you would go home and you play Xbox with the boys. Well, like I feel like that was the thing.
That's the thing is. There were definitely people with PlayStation. In fact, I believe Mike Bear had a PlayStation.
Well, that just confirms my.
but it's one of those things where like the people we played with obviously like played with the Xbox 360, and like you said, the online was just so much better.
Clean,
and people gave it so much crap because like, oh, PlayStation's free and Xbox.
I remember my friends being like, oh man, I can't find a match tonight, like because like the servers are down or like. Can't connect, like the connection's real bad.
The 360
never had issues.
So many
with that,
things
man.
from dumb stuff like the poker or the 1 versus 100.
Yeah,
and like they just had these like they had the avatars. They had all this stuff.
Yeah, the avatars
that,
were awesome. Yeah,
it's like dumb gimmicky stuff.
Yeah.
Like the gamer score. Now, granted, PlayStation did have trophies, and that's something like where it's like, oh, I'm going to platinum this game. That's cool. They coined that phrase. But the gamer score was a thing that you were like. Striving for it made
I saw this one picture. Sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah.
It was like, you remember like the thing you like when you were first setting up your Xbox account, and it was like, what kind of gamer are you or something? It was like pro and stuff. It's like, stay away. I saw a meme where it's like, stay away from these kids, or like, you remember what these kids were like, and it was underground gamer with the red skull thing. I was like, oh man, it's just like such nostalgia kick after that.
They did such a great job of like, hey, this is going to be your online. Like that's when I got like Wolfengard, right? Like Xbox suggested certain things, and like there's obviously the whole story behind it, but like people ran with that. Like that was your like, here's your gamer tag. This is your persona online. Like they crafted that so much better than Sony. They did it so much better.
Oh yeah, the avatar things I think is a huge point too. I loved that. Like getting gear. Like I remember getting achievements in Reach, trying to unlock the Spartan gear for my avatar and shit. And I'm
not saying Microsoft didn't make stumbles and change things. And like you talk about like the UI interface, like all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of weird things that they did.
Well,
they
what
didn't nail
about
it every time? But
What about the marketplace as well? I remember there's a lot of those really fun games in the Xbox. I think PlayStation probably had one too, but
they do.
Like you could play Uno. I remember playing Uno and stuff.
And PlayStation had that stuff, but Xbox would make it these big, blown out, again, very much online things where it's just like, hey, summer arcade games. And it was like these cheaper experiences. That's where you got your Limbo. That's where you got your Bastion. That's where like all these like kind of spotlights on indie stuff. Shadow Complex. Like really, really incredible things that like it was so community driven and just it was never a question of like what you were going to play or what you were going to do. It was just like you got online, immediately you saw what all your friends were doing. And not that you can't do that on PlayStation 3. Right. But it was so natural and so
I think
quick
the interface
and easy.
on the Xbox was so much better too. Like much brighter, much more exciting. Like PS3 to me, like it was so dark and like depressing. Like the friends list and like man, like you were saying, you get on, you get the Xbox green logo flashing and like it's super bright and your dashboard comes up. You can see all your friends and their avatars, what they're doing, like you were saying, and
you were literally buying like stupid like, oh, I'm gonna get this Batman costume.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's so awesome. Like you could get like gadgets and stuff, I think, and shit. It was
like PlayStation. I think PlayStation had a PlayStation Home, if I'm not mistaken, where you can go to your virtual world and you can visit people and see what they're trophy.
But it's not implemented into the
exactly.
Dashboard,
it's just like it was such a thing. Like imagine. And granted, I'm sure I'm forgetting some marketing thing that Sony was trying to do or whatever. And to be fair, Sony had some great exclusives. And
that just
Sony
goes
had some
to
great marketing campaigns.
The point of like you don't remember them. They didn't work.
And it's this idea of like this was the first time that everything was realized that the graphics were decent, like they were good, everything was in there. It's online gaming and it's individual stuff.
Yeah, I think Xbox had more of a finger on the pulse in terms of. We are now we turn the corner. This is online gaming, and they were able to connect with that with their vision of the console.
I think Xbox was like, wait a minute, we're goddamn Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It was
we have all the resources.
Money
we can do anything. Yeah, right.
And I mean that was just it. Now, granted, and I know we're just jumping through, but so for me, I think 360 absolutely needs to be on this list.
Definitely, agreed.
For me. I'm fine not having PS3 or Wii on there. If you're okay with the Wii, if we want to keep Wii on just for the heck of it,
I think we should keep Wii around.
Okay, we'll keep it around.
We can kick it later, but it's such a one of a kind, the first ever.
It was a get your grandparents to play this.
It's just like nothing was like it lit the world on fire, like you said. It really did. And that's something to be said about that.
Absolutely. My question is, did it light the couch on fire of the couch?
I will say I still play Wii Golf to this day.
We'll keep it on. We'll see
because we only have 5 spots. Give the people hope. Give the people some hope, man.
But now, after that, so that's 7th generation.
That's 7th gen.
Now we are on the 8th generation, starting in 2012, and it's ongoing. Same with the 9th. So 8th generation, we have the Wii U.
Oh, yeah.
Which was...
Fuck yeah, put that on the list.
I was working at GameStop at the time. Boy, was that a tough thing to explain to people what it was.
Really?
And dude, like to be like, oh, it's the Wii, it's Wii U. It's essentially it's the follow-up Wii. It was the prototype to the Switch. Right?
Yeah.
I think the Wii U had some really great stuff, and I actually like the controller in terms of things like Mario Maker.
Yeah.
They were doing some weird stuff, and I applaud them for it.
I feel like Nintendo always does that. It's like every other console seems to just be like a weird, because like you have GameCube, and then you get this Wii,
Yeah, the Wii U was just a knockout,
and then Wii U was
and
like
then
a
you get
huge
Switch.
flop,
And then you get Switch. Yeah.
Right. I think that they have a habit of doing that.
But you have the Wii U, you have the Sony PlayStation 4.
Yep.
Right? Xbox One.
Yep.
And then technically the Switch also is considered
in that generation.
Yeah, because the Wii U they had to pull the plug on it.
So the Wii U is awful.
Wii U's awful.
And the Xbox One's not great either, I don't feel.
Xbox One,
huge step down.
Huge, just it was a miserable. Now the one thing I will say with the Xbox, and I know I sound like an Xbox fanboy, and to an extent I am.
Yeah.
Because I do like the consoles.
Sure.
there was a lot of it rolled out poorly. They were too focused on television and not games, and Sony just bullied them, ate their lunch, and crushed them.
Yeah.
And they spent the entire generation trying to claw back any type of market share and everything else from it.
Right.
Phil Spencer got promoted and started being like the face of Xbox and definitely started turning things around. But like that took years and years and years. And I can't think of a thing on Xbox. Like, what did Xbox One really
Nothing, man.
give? Like, they gave poor Halos. They gave like in terms of exclusives and stuff. Like maybe you have like State of Decay. And like I'm sure I'm forgetting some other ones, like maybe like a Crackdown or something like that. But I think that was even on the 360. So
yeah, it was a
Xbox
shell of
One
its
was
former
rough.
self.
Yeah.
And PlayStation 4 takes the cake for this generation for me, easy. And the real winner of it is just the exclusives. The games that we got from the PlayStation 4, some of the best games ever made.
Dude, it was
not even
absolutely
close.
incredible. If you're looking at it from like God of War and Bloodborne and Spider-Man, Horizon, like Uncharted, like
keep going down
Uncharted
the list.
4, like
keep going
it's
down the list.
crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Not even close. Exclusives. They just have all these games that you can't play on any other console. It's unbelievable.
I guess technically Final Fantasy Remake. Like if you want to,
it's on the list, and I think it was a phenomenal game.
Yep.
It's Spider-Man, God of War were the big ones. Red Dead was on both, right?
Yeah, Red Dead was across the board.
But yeah, it's like if you want to play the best games, you need a PlayStation 4.
It was very much the games.
Or
that was
wait
kind of the
4 years and have a PC.
Yeah, right. But it was the game. Like if you were looking at stuff like on Xbox versus, and granted, Xbox strategies shifted.
Yeah.
But PlayStation, like it was worth owning a PlayStation, even if you were firmly in the camp of Xbox is your multiplayer games, which I was. And I had an Xbox One and everything, and that was what we decided on.
Right.
But still, I had a PlayStation because if you wanted to play like good ass games that were like just
that's what I'm saying.
9,
if you want
10
to
out
play
of
the
10,
best games, you need a PlayStation 4.
Yep.
And it's to the point where that kind of extends into the PS5, where it's like you have dreams about finding a PS5 and playing these games that you want to play.
To an extent, like I think I have yet to see a game on there, obviously short of the Final Fantasy Remake, which is all but announced on PC, right? Like it's going to come to PC.
When do you think? Like, do you think they'll announce it Christmas time, or do you think it will come out Christmas time?
Who knows, man? I don't know. I know it's going
like,
to hit.
Didn't they just have the Gamescast? What is it called?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's called. The GameSpot Gamescast.
Gamescast.
It's
what I'm talking about, right?
Gamescom.
Gamescom. Thank you. Spotcast.
Yeah. Gamescon. Gamescon?
I don't know. Anyways, it has an orange background, and I don't think they said
Jeff Keighley's.
I don't think they said anything about Final Fantasy during that.
They did not. No.
Did they say anything about Final Fantasy 16 during that?
Not that I'm aware of.
God damn it.
I don't even know if because I really only looked at the Xbox stuff because I think that was like the starting point. I don't know if PlayStation did anything with that. PlayStation kind of does their own thing.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, they kind of
really just
have walked away from the party.
Microsoft, I think, is capitalizing on it, where it's just like, look, if PlayStation and Nintendo aren't going to be here, like we'll.
Let me tell you what you can do for $1.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So PS4, I would highly consider that on the list.
Would you consider? So here's the real question: is would you put that over PS2?
Wow, that's
I know,
very tough.
I would, and that's nuts.
I think
because there are a lot. There's just a lot of factors.
I don't think. Okay. I don't think. First of all, I don't think we need to limit ourselves to like one per whatever.
Absolutely.
But
yeah,
if we're just going head to head, I think, man, here's the problem. Like PS2 had so many solid games, but PS4 had a couple unbelievable games.
Yeah.
So what do you value more? I would probably go with PS4. I mean, it's just a better
It's crazy, right?
version.
Now, again, we can do multiple consoles on, like multiple of the same
right. I mean,
company, but
yeah, I'm just thinking like if you're thinking of the heavy hitters and like what it did for the industry and stuff, like it's kind of tough because the PlayStation 4 didn't really do anything revolutionary in terms of like technology or anything like that, right? Like it
looked good. If you want to go into the PlayStation 4 route, it's fine. Like the Series X, like Series X, no, Xbox One Series, no, Xbox One X, no Series.
Yes.
I'll tell you what,
fuck Xbox.
PlayStation. A+ on naming.
A+.
A+.
Yes.
Xbox. Ugh.
Less is more sometimes, folks.
I would say though that like it's tough for me. I'm looking at it on like how much enjoyment did I get out of it? How much like
right, absolutely.
Like, and it's weird because I obviously use my PlayStation 2 more than I've ever used my PlayStation.
That's
4.
what I was saying. I'm going back. It's like I have the most hours spent in video games on the PS2. It has to be.
Mine would be my 360, but yes, I get your point.
Actually, yeah, that's a fucking. Oh man,
but
it's gotta
I
be close. The amount of hours I spent on Halo and Call of Duty and Battlefield, man.
I just don't know what PlayStation 2 does better than a PlayStation 4.
It doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Like
dude.
PlayStation 2 sets out to be something, and it has its goals, and PlayStation 4 literally is the same, but it just does it better.
Right.
Better exclusives, better games.
Well, we're almost at the end, so we can get there. And
yeah,
we'll have to
but
make
I
some
think
tougher,
as of right now, I think I agree with you.
Tougher calls.
Yeah,
and I know people are
up in arms over that. I mean, if you really sit down,
now,
if you take the nostalgia out of it and sit down, the PlayStation 4 is a fucking good console, man.
Can you not play PS2 games on a PS4? Not natively, but can you not rebuy stuff?
I know you could do that on PS3. Like you could actually put your disc in. On PS4, I'm not 100% sure.
See, this is part of why
I think in the store, and I'm sure people will correct me on this, I think in the store you can buy some classic games, whether they're remastered or just put it like into the store.
I know like with PS4 you could do stuff like Journey, which came out on the 3.
Yeah.
You can port that over and stuff.
Like I remember they came out with the Sly Cooper collection on...
Yeah, but those are almost like
PSN
kind of
store.
redone collections.
That's what I was saying. It's like they did like the classics that you're remembering from the PlayStation 2. A lot of them they have
never a Twisted Metal though, man.
Dude, Twisted Metal, they're just losing money. Like that is such a cash cow. You could do
some stuff there.
Oh yeah, talk about like a unique.
I'm surprised Epic hasn't.
Yeah, right. Hey, Epic, you want to make some more money, man?
So I guess really the only stuff we got to talk about is. You have Nintendo Switch. I'm going to consider that like kind of like that half step because that's still technically within the 8th generation.
Switch is very good, man. I think it's very good.
Switch is really good. It gives you everything.
It gives you everything.
Yeah,
but is it as good as the PlayStation 4?
Well, I mean, I don't think we have to just pick one from that.
I understand. I'm just saying.
I think Switch should be on the list just so we can talk through because right now, if you look at the Nintendo,
I see,
Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube. And or I'm sorry, not GameCube, Wii, and then the Switch. So like there's a lot.
Yeah, I would put the Switch. Yeah, I think
it's just I think the Switch does a lot.
I think it lacks maybe some of the not exclusives, but like the hitting power of like games, I guess.
Yeah, the Switch.
Like it doesn't really like you have Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Mario.
You have all your Mario stuff. But
Mario Odyssey is very, very good.
Yeah, I did.
So like Zelda, Mario Odyssey, technically. So the thing with a Switch, and when you're talking about exclusives, and it's interesting because the Wii U, obviously, we talked about how it like was a terrible system.
Right.
Had very, very good games on there. So like if you're looking at the Donkey Kong Tropic Freeze, you're looking at the Super Mario 3D World, which was very, very good. Like the Switch basically re-released all of those games and everyone talked about how amazing they are. But it's like, they were out for years. It's just like you're fine. Like now the people that can actually see them are beyond just, the 10 people that owned a Wii U.
Right, exactly.
Myself included.
Yeah. So it kind of got the double dip on that.
Right. And when
I think that still counts for the Switch though. Because if it's on the Switch,
absolutely, 100% for the Switch.
Yeah.
But on top of that, now you also have the Super Nintendo games, Nintendo games. I don't think they've announced anything for Nintendo 64 yet, but they're remaking Zelda games. They're coming out with all the Super Nintendo stuff. So all the Super Nintendo games that I'm like, this is the reason that put Super Nintendo on the list.
Right.
You can play all of that on the Switch, and it's included in the $20 a year service or whatever. So you have to,
like you said earlier, it is emulation, but
that's you can't quote me on that, but I'm 99% sure they're using the emulated code to get that working.
But still, man,
can I tell the difference? Absolutely not. So I don't care.
Right. But I mean, that's still great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's why, like, if
so
anything,
that kind of gets to the argument of like,
off.
Yeah, does that knock Super Nintendo off? I mean, I personally think, you need to factor in there needs to be some weight given to the console at the time.
Sure.
I guess that's kind of like when you're thinking of like, you're going back and you're ranking things, what it was at the time is a really important part of it because it's a part of that history and that effect on the culture and everything like that. So I always consider that. I guess maybe other people don't, rank that as highly. Like it has to hold up today. It has to be good now. I don't know if I really subscribe to that 100%.
Yeah, I that's why we talked through all of them, right? Like
right.
I think it's I don't know. Like for me, it's I like to see where things have come from. I like to understand the rationale behind that stuff, but also like now that we're farther in, or now you can see kind of like the flaws and the cracks in the armor of how good PlayStation 1 was or whatever it was. Yeah. Whenever you talk about like our top 5, that's the interesting part. Right. Is like, what do we value most?
Yeah. Yeah, true. Absolutely. All right, so we have a shorter list.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, let me start reading off.
Let's start cutting them down and get a rank.
Currently on the list.
Yeah.
We have the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. We have the PlayStation 2. I'm going to say we'll just nix the Dreamcast. Is that fair?
That's up to you, buddy.
We'll nix the Dreamcast. Special shout out to the Dreamcast.
Okay, fair.
I think that thing was dope.
You have very good arguments prepared for it, but then I just come back at you as like, dude, they went bankrupt faster than you can
that's
say.
The thing. How can you call it one of the top 5 consoles and it dies?
As I'm saying, you can tell me how cool the features are, how ahead of the times it was, and I literally turn around and I'm saying, dude, nobody had it.
And I won't fight you on it. I just I think. Oh, man, it was so, I appreciate
what you're trying to do for it, man. I appreciate it.
So Super Nintendo, we have the PlayStation 2, we have the Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii, we have the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that's 5.
Nintendo Switch.
6.
And then we didn't talk about the Series X or the PS5. I don't think we put either of those on the list.
It's too early.
Yeah. The only thing I could say, and this goes against what I was
PS5
just talking
is so
about.
ugly. Ugh.
Well, don't even get me started with that.
I think that kind of counts for something, right?
I personally, so I think the 360. If we're talking about given it during its time and what age we were, it was like the perfect storm.
Yeah,
the 360 is awesome. The Xbox Series X is literally mostly the 360, but like way better.
Well, of course.
But it's not even just like the thing with the Xbox stuff is you can play all of those games on the Series X.
The Game Pass thing is just unbelievable.
It's the Game Pass plus all those games. Like you can get the games with gold. You can get the the backwards compatibility stuff. Like, I would almost say that the Series X and you just knock out the 360.
Ooh.
I know.
It just hasn't been out for that long, though.
It hasn't, but it's that good.
How strong do you feel about that?
I feel very strongly about the 360 in the era that it is. And this goes back against what I was just saying about, like, I think it needs to hold up and blah, 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 blah. Well, I think the 360 does hold up. The Series X is a objectively better console than the 360.
That's kind of what I was going with, too. I mean, like, when we were reminiscing about the 360 golden, age, man, like, that's something that probably is, like, a very hard thing to describe, I guess.
It would be the same argument that I have with, like, do you just nix the Nintendo, like the Super Nintendo, in favor of Switch?
I don't think so, because I think the fact that Switch is getting these games on it is more of an argument for Super Nintendo.
On why it's just so good.
It's such a demand for that. They want that again, that now these newer consoles are trying to get that back. Whereas a PlayStation 4 doesn't need to go back to the PS2 games, although it does in some aspects. It can hold on its own in terms of look at the stuff that's coming out for this thing now. And that's a stronger argument for me.
But see, I think when you're looking at it purely from a console standpoint, having that backwards compatibility is important. Where like
absolutely,
PS2, you can play all
agree.
PlayStation 1 games,
totally
so
agree.
like you're good.
I totally
all the
agree
controllers
with that,
are you could plug in the new controllers and stuff. So like the thing there is like with PS4, you're just looking. I mean, obviously there are exceptions, but you're just looking at that PS4. Like, do those 4 games take over? And
there is some
the list that we were talking through. The other thing to mention too is we did say the DS Lite on there.
Yes, I was about to as well.
But the argument was like if I was going to
we have 7.
So we have 7 total.
Yeah, 7 total.
If I was going to strike one of those then that's including the DS Lite. I'm sorry.
7 including the DS Lite. Yes.
If I was going to strike one of those, I would take off the PS4.
After we just got done saying that the PS2 is better?
Yeah, because the more I think about it...
Or the PS4 is better?
But if you're looking at it from a console standpoint, it has some fantastic exclusives.
Yeah.
But PS2 had some really good ones as well.
Yeah.
Like you have your God of War on PS2 as well.
Yep.
You know, like Metal Gear, like all that stuff.
Yep.
So I would let's say that's even, but like.
But did you buy a PS2 to play this game? Like you have to get a PS2. Like let me put it this way: like you have to get a PS4 to play God of War. You got to play this game, man. You got to buy this PS4.
Yeah.
Like I did not get that feeling with PS2. PS2 is like, dude, we have an infinite amount of games. Like, look at all this shit we can play, man. This is awesome.
So the only argument I had there is for PS2, I got it to play Tekken.
Sure,
for whatever.
I think that's
an
extreme outlier.
Probably, but what I'm looking at it is I got PS2 because I wanted to play specific games that were only on PS2. And Xbox was new. I didn't really know what that was. I was a little, not scary, but like that was the unknown factor of
for
like,
sure.
Oh, I'm a Sony fanboy.
Yep.
I love Sony.
Yep,
you know, so that's why
I got a PS2 because I had a PS1, right? Like, I mean,
exactly. It's like, oh, this is a better version of what I have.
But I think
like,
the PS4 comes out and you get a lot of people who have traditionally been coming off the Xbox 360 and they say, oh, I kind of want to play those games.
That's a solid argument. I guess my question to you then is, what would you nix from the list then? If we have
so let's read it down again. So Super
Nintendo.
I think that's making the list just based on what you're saying, unless you'd rather have the Switch on there.
Well, we'll talk through it. But
Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2.
Yep.
Xbox 360, PlayStation 4. I'm missing a couple here.
Yeah, I got you. Hold on. Let me bring the list back up. So we have Super Nintendo.
Yes.
So Super Nintendo. So we just skipped the 5th generation completely. Sorry, sorry, N64. Whoops. So technically N64 was on there. Do you want N64?
Oh, that's right. That's right. We probably nixed that, right?
I would. I know a lot of people are angry.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about it.
I don't have any.
I have no connection to it. Minus when my mom would go to the grocery store, I would play a little bit. I know it's a very beloved console, but I don't know.
That's how I feel as well. So Super Nintendo, we have PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, still the Wii is on there.
I'd probably think it, like going through these arguments, I'd probably nix the Wii, right?
Nix the Wii. Okay.
Would you not?
I would do the Switch over the Wii.
Oh, true. I forgot. Yeah, we didn't even get the Switch. Switch over the Wii, really?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Why?
It does. I mean, once again, it does everything better. But so my whole thing is like I probably have maybe 6, 7, 8 games that I rebought just to play that mobile, like on the couch on the handheld like Switch thing. Be it I'm going on a road trip and like that was my handheld, right? Mm-hmm. In my current day and age in life and whatnot. Which is why I would say that Switch covers like the handheld and the.
But you're saying you want to nix the Switch?
No, I want to nix the Wii.
That's what I'm saying.
In favor of the Switch.
That's what I'm saying too.
Okay.
I said nix the Wii, and you said you want to nix the Wii. I'm Switch though. I think you misunderstood what I was saying.
Misunderstood.
I would take Wii off the list.
I would too.
Yeah. Although it was revolutionary and
so we just killed the N64 and the Wii.
Oh man, Nintendo guys are just coming after us, man.
Look, man, Super Nintendo's still on there technically.
Yeah.
So Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
I know we keep repeating this, so I apologize for
people
listening.
It's all good. We're just trying to keep track here.
So Super Nintendo, we have the PlayStation 2.
Yep.
Xbox 360.
Yes.
We have PlayStation 4, Switch,
DS Lite.
Yeah.
So you would get rid of the PlayStation 4 at this point?
Nah, I would get rid of the PS2. And I think that
you would get rid of the PS2?
I think that's criminal.
Did you just flip on that? You were just saying that you were just defending the PS2.
No, let's get rid of the PS4. You're right. I just flipped on it. I'm trying to. So the thing is, I'm trying to keep my mind in because on one hand, I think let's get rid of the PS4, but on the other hand, it's like the Series X literally.
Okay, let's do this first. What's a lock? I think the 360 is a lock.
So you think the 360 is a lock over the Series X, the current Xbox?
Yeah.
Okay.
unless you feel strongly otherwise.
No, I
to me, I don't think it's fair. Like, it's not enough time yet, but maybe it has. What, it's been like a year?
Maybe. I think, and maybe I'm looking at it, again, I might be looking at this wrong, where it's like, if you're looking at it just from a console perspective.
Well, of course, yeah. If we're looking at it,
but like in that time and in that, like, it's so weird because now we're looking at it from a bird's eye view, and I keep going back and forth, and obviously just since we've been talking, I
think we need to respect what Xbox 360 did, how it took advantage of the time it was in, perfectly.
Yep.
Absolutely rolled over the PlayStation. I think you got to respect that. I think it gives it a lot of points. I think the Series X is not dominating like the 360 was.
You know what? That's actually a great point. Yeah. Okay.
Like, it was a landslide.
That alone, like, actually kind of made me feel a little better.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we need to respect the 360, and that should be on there instead of the Series X. That's where my thoughts are.
That makes me feel better. I don't know if
that
that's
can make you feel better.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, the console is like.
If you're
getting
1-to-1, it's like, yes, this is a better 360.
Stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. But
nothing, you can't say the same thing. So I think that's the distinction, is you cannot say the same thing with the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 is not, you also get PS1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Like you do with Xbox, where you get Xbox everything.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that's why the Series X is like, nope, you own Xbox now. You just have everything.
Yeah. No. It's a good point. It's fair, valid point.
Also with Game Pass, it's like
a little.
That's
Game Pass is great. I think the best argument for it is Game Pass, personally.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's everything. It's Game Pass. It's all of your previous things. It's all the Xbox games. Like, it's the entire history of Xbox, and technically now Bethesda.
Yeah. True. Here you go.
For something that you're already paying the online price for.
It's good. It's
so
good. But the 360 is legendary.
It is. And that's why I feel I would be okay with doing the 360. We'll nix the Series X off.
Nod to the Series X.
Yeah.
So it's doing really well. And maybe in a couple years, we might, take another look at that.
Sure.
When we get some more time to digest what the Series X is actually. It's hard to tell in real time. We're still very in it. Whereas we can take a step back and look at what Xbox 360, what its legacy actually is. So it's a little bit unfair. But I think we got to see the Xbox 360's full history. And I think that's worth more than the Series X. We're very in the infant stage of it right now.
I am following your line of thinking, and I'm good with it. I'm fine with it.
All right, good.
360 absolutely has to be on the list.
That's a lock.
Yep.
Is Super Nintendo a lock?
It depends by it. So
it's not. Okay, so the hesitation tells me it's not a lock.
But that's the thing is, for me, yes.
Right.
I think Super Nintendo should be a lock because of the line of thinking you just talked through.
Right. It's a legendary console.
Like
as soon as you showed me that picture, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that.
I would say Super Nintendo needs to be on the list.
Okay. So we got 2 locks.
What about a DS Lite?
I think I just want a handheld representation because it's such an important part of console history.
A handheld representation that is not the Switch.
I mean, if you want to fight, if you want to make
technically we didn't talk about Vita at all, but
PSP
Vitas, I'm
garbage.
Not garbage, but like I'm good.
Yeah,
I didn't never play anything.
I didn't either.
They literally gave
I had a
one.
PSP.
Like I had a Vita. I had like the good
I had
OLED
a PSP
screen
and it
Vita
was like, didn't do it for me. If you want to make the argument that the Switch should be like the handheld representative, like I feel, and you could disagree with me on this, I feel like there needs to be a handheld representative on there because that, like I was saying, it's such an important part of the history of consoles that I feel like a disservice not to have something handheld on there.
I agree with you. And technically it's still current. So I guess maybe that's the thing is like we don't know what the full thing of the Switch is. It's just like
the full capabilities of it.
Yeah, I mean like when you look at it, it's just like Switch has a couple bangers. Like I would say Mario Odyssey.
I'm very curious about
up there.
Steam Deck, man. Like what if that thing's amazing?
It might be.
I don't know. Anyways, the exclusives on.
But I think the other half of that is Steam Deck doesn't have the. Let's detach these controls now. It's multiplayer,
Yep.
Mario Kart, and different things like that. Which all the consoles technically do that,
cool,
but like
yeah.
Switch was very much like.
I think
the
there's
party
something
thing.
to be said about the DS, the whole pocket thing.
Yeah.
Like you literally.
And everybody had one. Everyone would be playing like
everyone-
Mario
yeah,
and doing.
Yeah,
different
you're on the
things and
bus. I
stuff.
remember those days fondly. Like you're on the bus.
Literally goes in your pocket.
It goes in
yeah.
your pocket. Everyone's playing Mario Kart. Yeah.
And
So
can still play the older.
I personally would put DS Lite on there.
I can get behind that.
Maybe it's not a lock. Maybe there's more hashing out that needs to be done between that and the Switch.
Yeah.
I think it would be between those two, unless you want to put them both on, which I probably would disagree with.
I would probably disagree with that as well.
Yeah. So
Although we are going to have something akin to that. Well, actually not, because we already have
So
two
we
Nintendo
have
systems on there. So Super Nintendo,
Super
DS,
Nintendo-
and 360 are the three that are on the list right now.
lock. So you're saying DS?
I would take
You
a
say
DS.
DS?
So
Okay.
the more I think about it, the more I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? That was a really good console. Just like whoever you
They're
talk to, like, it was a
solid
solid
console.
console. Great library. Like
Yeah, good
I mean,
online
yeah.
stuff, like local multiplayer. Like when
Yes.
you play with your
yeah,
local
like local
multiplayer.
stuff.
Yeah,
like
not online. Sorry,
online.
sorry.
Always
Local
sucks with
multiplayer.
Nintendo. That's just bar.
That was the
yeah.
big thing though. Is local multiplayer.
It's tough
such
because
a-
when you pick 5, like we're really trying to keep in everything in perspective. Like you are keeping my head in perspective. So I thank you for that.
I'm trying to balance out. Like I understand
Yeah.
where you're coming from. Where yes, this is a better version of X or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the newest thing. Obviously, it's gonna be better, but you have to honor the history of it and what it did.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
It's very
Because we're never going to get a
it's
time
tough.
like that again, like you said, where you're with all your friends after school playing your DS, right? Like that's just not real anymore.
Yeah, so
That's an
I guess the
interesting part.
nostalgia does play a factor in it. Then
It's a little nostalgia, but there's something concrete there. It's not like, oh, we look back and it's like, you know what, that was actually not fun at all playing with my friends on the bus. Like, I mean, that was a really big part of that community.
Dude, that was like study hall. Everyone
Right.
just flipped open their DS and
Exactly. Like that's a
doing Pokemon
big
stuff.
thing in the gaming history, right?
Yeah, I mean that was Pokemon Diamond, which is interesting
Right.
because that's coming out for Switch remastered.
Hey,
like with the remake or whatever.
and does that give points to Switch or does that give points to the DS? It's
Yeah.
tough to say.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you right now, like I'm good. I'm more than likely going to get it just because nostalgia.
Sure.
But am I going to play it like I did the
No.
DS? Am I going to play with anyone? Probably.
No.
Probably
No.
not.
No, not trading. I remember you do the trading.
And it's like if you just, and I guess this is a great argument, is just because the X is capable of it. Like, I don't think we're never going to get that again.
No, you'll never feel like you did when you came home from school
Sure.
and you booted up Call of Duty. That's not even a question.
Yeah.
Not a question in your mind what you were doing after school. It was Call of Duty all night.
Or even if we did that, like let's say Splitgate takes off and we're always playing Splitgate,
Sure,
like
whatever.
I'm never going to feel good about it because I'm older now and I'm not going to be as good as I was at playing Call
Right.
COD
It was
4.
just it was everything lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think for the DS, everything lined up perfectly. Like what we were doing with our lives, culminated in an experience where we're with a lot of our friends and there's time to kill.
Yeah.
And you just get this perfect storm of right place, right time. And I think the DS hits that nicely.
Yeah. And I mean, again, thank you for keeping me in this headspace. Like
Hey.
I feel good about that. I feel
So we got 3 on there as
happy.
locks.
Yeah.
We got 2 spaces left. We have yet to put the PS2 on there, yet to put the PS4 on there.
Yeah.
And
I guess the more we're talking about, the Switch is just
the
kind of
Switch is kind of falling.
Yeah.
So do we put 2 Sony consoles on there? Is there another one I'm
Is the last
forgetting
2?
about?
Let me jump up here.
Because we have Xbox 360.
Technically, you did have the Wii on there. I think we nixed the Wii.
We nixed
already.
that, I think.
Yeah.
I would not put that over the 2 Sony consoles.
Yeah, I'm looking at the thing. So like Nintendo 64 is still something that we both. Nixed.
I would put the 2 Sony consoles over that.
Super Nintendo. Yeah, so
We have 3 on the list right now. We got 2 spots left.
Super Nintendo, 360, and the DS. Yeah, I mean,
So are we saying PS2, PS4 are the last 2 spots?
yeah, like my heart is like you betrayer, like get Dreamcast on there, you motherfucker.
No way, I'm not allowing that.
But no, I have to say, like when I'm trying to think of like games that spoke to me, especially during like my I mean, PS4 is still technically ongoing.
Yeah.
So the games that resonated with me the most that I've played recently are all on PS4.
All
like
PS4.
I could be fine with that, even
Absolutely.
if it's like the 5th spot. Or are you saying PS2 is the 5th spot? And just
I
make
think
everybody.
I don't know about that.
So okay, so let's say that PS2 gets both of those, right? So the only console that we're saying that is from the Microsoft camp is going to be the 360.
yeah,
Super amazing console.
yeah,
And then we have 2 Nintendo, 2 Sony.
that's a good representation.
I'm okay with that.
Um,
The more we talk about it, the more I'm like,
Yeah,
all right,
I'm coming to grips with it.
Like my multiplayer, like the in the moment feeling. That's my
Yes.
360s. My nostalgia's hitting with the Super
Yeah.
Nintendos, and just the solid like library of games and like the single player stuff is getting
Yeah.
hit with Sony. I
Yeah.
feel good.
I think you hit it right on the head. That's exactly where my
So
head's at
what's
as well.
number 1? No, okay. So what's number 5?
I'm with you on the PS4.
Okay.
See you squeaking in, for lack of a better term.
I
My
want,
other one.
I want to be fair.
My other.
Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to be fair because you never did the Super Nintendo.
I never
so-
did. It's tough for me. So you have to really sell me on it.
And I can't. So I think that, I mean, I've already made all these arguments. I think the
I
main
will say
thing-
this though. I will say this. If we're talking legendary exclusives, the Super Nintendo has some huge hitters.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's
I mean, like all the Mario games, Donkey Kong, Punch Out, like
That's what I'm saying.
freaking-
So it's like these are some of the most legendary games of all
yeah,
time.
Final Fantasy. Ever heard of it? Like
No. I would be okay doing
Paper
PS4.
Mario.
PS4.
No, not Paper
5.
Mario. Paper Mario? Mario RPG?
Yeah.
Not Paper Mario. I'm sorry.
Paper Mario is way later.
Yeah. That was 60. Was it 64 or was it GameCube that Paper Mario came out?
Maybe it was 64 for the
That
first
shows-
one.
I don't know. I'm sure
I don't know.
someone's yelling at us right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm okay with PS4 5, Super Nintendo 4.
So the only thing I can say with the Super Nintendo stuff
Yeah.
is,
Or do
when-
you want that higher?
No, I would say the way I'm feeling right now
Yeah.
is PS4 made me feel. That's tough.
I'm just in the camp of Super Nintendo, and this is kind of weird because we're both arguing for like the opposite side of what we would think.
Yeah.
You saying something like Super Mario World is the greatest game ever made, and it holds up
has
to
be.
this
Yeah,
day.
no, it needs to be up there.
And it's like, to me, it's like, okay. I mean, God of War is one of the best games I've ever seen in my entire life.
but we can't judge
But-
it based off of the game alone.
No,
And
I absolutely. But that's just one. And it's like, because what you were saying, like, well, it's either between these two, Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World. They're both on the same console. And then you're just going down the list, naming all these other things, right? Like everything. So it's like,
I wouldn't say, well, maybe not all, but like most of which
you could name
still
10
hold up.
Super Nintendo games right now that are legendary games.
Yeah.
You can't do that at PS4.
Yeah.
And the handful that PS4 has are immaculate, but it doesn't have the depth and it doesn't have the. I mean, Super Nintendo has stood the test of time.
No, I absolutely. I think because like as much as I loved Horizon, and God of War and stuff like that, but like I have Horizon right now, and I'm not playing that, but I am playing Super Mario World like at least once a year.
Yep.
So
yeah, I'm with
yeah,
you.
PS4
With you.
I would put it at the 5 spot.
Yep. With you on
Now,
that.
granted, I personally probably would have put PS2 at the 5 spot and put PS4 at 4.
Really?
Just from the gameplay, because I don't think there's anything on the PS2, and I might be eating my words, but I don't think there's anything on the PS2 that I was like, this is a life-changing is dramatic, but like a life-changing game, or this completely shifted my perspective of what gaming can be, or how much I love gaming. And stuff like that. I would play a lot of Splinter Cell, or not Splinter Cell, I'm sorry, SOCOM. I play a lot of SOCOM. Played a lot of Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and I played a lot of Tekken. And that's really it on the PlayStation.
Yeah, so on the PlayStation, I played all the poster boy games, the Ratchet and Clank, the Sly Cooper, the Jack and Daxter. Those are the big three. So I got more of that because that's all that single player experience. So I was like, oh man.
And there's like your Medal of Honor, I guess, technically.
Yeah. So I have more fondness for that because I got those kind of narratives and characters and stuff that like I love to this day. I will say I spent a lot of time on Battlefront in PS2. That was like
it's a good one. Yeah.
That kind of opened like, oh man, like when you're on Kashyyyk, dude, and there's like 100 fucking Wookiees and shit. Like you were like, this is unbelievable.
Right.
It's
if
tough.
if you feel like clearly you feel pretty strongly about the PS2.
I feel,
PS4.
I mean, that's nostalgia talking. I mean, 100%. Like the PS2 is like really when I was starting to get into gaming, right? Like it's,
the way I'm looking at it, and this is kind of your arguments that are helping me shape my kind of like finalized opinion, so to speak. But like, I can't really think of anything that was like stand out on. Like I remember experiences on the PS2. But nothing.
You didn't play the best games on PS2.
Apparently not. Yeah. But that's the thing is like,
you didn't play the big three, man. That's
guess.
Like to this day, Sony still will roll out Sly Cooper as like a mascot. You know what I mean? Like that's, or Ratchet.
But I played it a little bit on like PS3.
Like Ratchet just got a new game.
Yeah.
They're still making them. Mm-hmm. That says something to me.
Sure.
And that game is apparently very good. The new Ratchet & Clank.
I don't disagree with any of that. I'm just saying.
I think you're talking about staying power. If they're still making, like we were saying with that generation, it kicked off a bunch of franchises.
I guess it does have God of War, so that would be something that I would probably
God of
cling
War
to
as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we saying PlayStation 4 is 5. What's the 4 spot?
I guess PS2 if we're like trying to battle those.
I mean, we still have the DS.
Do you think the PlayStation 4 is better than PlayStation 2? Because I feel like I flopped. I feel like 30 minutes ago I was saying the opposite.
Buddy, we flopped 12 times over.
I know.
We were worried about this being a shorter episode, and it's already an hour and a half in.
No way.
Yeah, it's an hour and 26 minutes.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. It's not felt like an hour and a half. We should wrap it up.
We should wrap it up. That's why I'm.
Yeah. So let's do PS4 5.
Okay.
PlayStation 2 4. Top 3.
So you think a DS is better than a PS2?
Oh, I guess no. That's a good point.
I would do PlayStation.
Is the DS better than the PS4? Like for me personally, no. I never owned one, but
that's a good point.
Well,
then I mean. I think
tough.
I got a lot more out of my DS than I got out of my PlayStation. So
Either
the
ones,
thing,
yeah.
But the thing is, like PlayStation was so hard hitting, but it was the games.
Not
it wasn't the
that's a good point.
console.
Okay, so I can sleep at night putting DS3. I can't put it much higher than that though.
No, that's fine.
But you're absolutely like what the console did, and the DS is like very important in terms of that. So DS3. So we got Super Nintendo. This thing,
I can't believe
you have snuck it up there, man.
You let me get Super Nintendo up there,
sneaking it up, dude. But if we're thinking about the most legendary consoles, like I'm sure
Super Nintendo did one thing, and it did it.
I'm sure you can look at a million lists, and Super Nintendo's gonna be in all of them, man.
I think you would be right. Yeah,
and there's a reason for that. It's Super Nintendo or Xbox 360 for number 1 of all time, dude.
I would say Xbox 360.
Would you really?
Yeah, over Super Nintendo. Yeah,
and the nostalgia stops.
No, I mean,
different nostalgia.
To an extent, right. But like, if you ask me what, and this is not to get all sappy, but like, this is what Couch Company is, right?
Yeah,
it's about playing with your friends in the group of it. Where it's like, I will always value games that we can play together over.
Yeah, I've established
stuff, usually,
a lot of great like friendships from the 360 days, right?
Absolutely.
I'm with you. You don't have to sell me, dude. I had a 360. I did have a Super Nintendo.
So you're letting me run away with Super Nintendo as the number 2 spot then?
I feel very good about that.
Okay.
I think we need to honor the legacy of the Super Nintendo. I think it's
dude.
Not to overuse it, but it's a legendary console. It is.
I want you to play those games because
I think I'm very good about understanding that even if I haven't experienced something, I can kind of get a feel for
that's one thing. Like,
and maybe I do it to a fault sometimes. Maybe
I see you're way better at that than I am. With me, it's very tough. Even with like Super Nintendo, like I keep trying to picture that stuff and like, am I giving too much credit to it? Like whatever, but like
I think it's really
so good,
like
man.
People loved that thing, man, and it was good, solid.
I mean, we
Games
just talked an hour and a half about all these consoles, and the only thing that I'm thinking right now is how much I want to go play on my Super Nintendo.
That's some
Yeah. And
can't do that. We can't do that.
How sad I am that we'll
never get the 360
like Call of Duty 4 and stuff like that, like we used to.
Those were the days, man.
Yeah.
All right. 361, Super Nintendo 2, DS Lite 3, PlayStation 2 4, PlayStation 4 5. That's an interesting list, but I am okay with it. I feel good about it.
I feel like that is going to be one of the most controversial lists on our site currently.
You think so?
I think so.
What are we missing? What are we leaving at?
No,
N64
I think there are a few people whose ears are currently bleeding right now with PlayStation being so low.
So low, yeah. I mean,
it's interesting because you're looking at it. We're saying Microsoft DS above
those.
One,
yeah, right.
Then Nintendo, then Sony.
Right. Yeah, that's tough.
It's nuts.
But Sony has double the consoles on the list than Microsoft.
Sure.
I think people might get, depending on who it is, the DS being so high. But again, it goes back to what did this console do for gaming? And to me, it's just like, the communities that it created. You get these people who aren't even traditional gamers, and it's bringing them into the fold as well.
Well, like the DS,
kind of like a mobile aspect.
The more I think about the DS, because like you have your Mario Kart, which we all we played constantly. You have all your classic kind of Mario games, but then like you have like Animal Crossing. You have like the online component too. Like there's a lot there that like
there's a lot. There's depth.
Yeah, and again, it's obviously time and place, but those car rides,
you have the Pokemon,
those
you have the
bus
Pokemon
rides
stuff
from like
where you have your single player experience, and then you're trading Pokemon with your friends. It's just a very It did very good for gaming.
I'm happy with that list personally. I know people will be upset.
I love the Sony consoles, man.
Yeah.
But when you're really thinking critically about what the DS did, because the PS2 had online, but it wasn't like anything like significant.
Yeah.
And then the PS4 obviously has onlines, but we're saying that major strength is those games.
The PS4 to me is very much squeaking by, and this is more of like kind of a nod to like a compromise from both of us, just because of.
Well, I don't know what I would replace it with. I guess is where
I would either replace it with a Switch or the Dreamcast, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's just.
I just think that
the library is so good.
The Series X or the Xbox One.
Xbox One, yeah.
And its exclusives were some of the best exclusives on a console. And I think that gives it the edge to me. There it is. That's our top five.
So let me run it up. So PlayStation 4.
Number 5.
Then we go PS2.
Yes, sir.
Then we go the DS Lite, specifically the Lite.
Yeah.
I think it is. So I know we were saying like no like pros and different things like that. DS Lite was complete
was different
revision.
Enough.
Like
exactly,
it's
right.
that is the one.
Right.
Super Nintendo, and then Microsoft Xbox 360 is the number one.
That's our number one
console.
Holy shit! People were so mad.
I don't care. Like in all honesty, like the only thing I would actually fight for on that list is I think the 360 should be number one, unless you want to make the argument of the Series X. But given all our conversations and what the background is and stuff, I am very happy with the 360.
Yeah. We are very much Xbox fanboys.
Well, we don't need. I mean, I guess the beauty here is we don't need to come up with any second section.
No,
of this.
We're good, man. We are good.
Wow,
I didn't think it was going to be that passionate.
I know,
but here we are. I mean, we should have known, right? That's the whole thing.
If anything, this is what we enjoy talking about too. So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, for anyone who's stuck it out with us here, I apologize for going so long. But once you get into it, it's hard to realize what time it is. I guess we'll be back same time, same place next week with another top 5 for you. Maybe some other stuff thrown in there.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching and joining us on the couch. See ya. Peace.